right, let's get straight to it. We're discussing COVID-19 on the show today because it continues to be the biggest story that is impacting all of our lives, that impacts those of our near and dear ones, as well as impacts business resumption, incomes, the economy getting back on track. Now, we have been hit by a second wave. That's nothing new, but the crisis seems to be deepening. That's the word coming in from the health ministry as well, that has said in no uncertain terms that the situation is going from bad to worse. Let's listen in to what was said at that press briefing today.
As you have noticed, last few weeks, the situation is becoming from bad to worse, and there's serious cause for concern. In some states in particular, there is a huge cause for worry, but I think no state and no part of our country, no district, no zilla should be complacent. Because what the trends show is that the virus is still very active, can penetrate our defenses, and when we think we have found ways to control the virus, it strikes back. It has done so in our country and it has done so in other countries. And therefore, there is a concern which we all should be mindful of. We have seen that the active cases were down to about a lakh, just above a lakh, and now they are 5.4 lakh. Of course, almost 2/3.
All right, Dr. NK Arora, Chair, COVID Subcommittee at NTAGI, is with us on the show today, as is Rahul Pandit, who's a member of the State COVID Task Force of Maharashtra. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandit and Dr. Arora, for speaking with us today. Dr. Arora, let me just start by getting your take on what is going on. We've been seeing an upward surge in cases consistently over the last few weeks. What are the statistics that have you worried? Is it the shortening of the doubling days? Is it the spread and possibility of mutations which are causing this surge? And are the mortality numbers lesser, leading to a lesser cause of worry as compared to last year this time?
Thank you, Tamanna, for inviting me. You have spelled out all the reasons. I will be more specific one by one. One is that this virus has been behaving in waves. So we had a crescendo high in September last year. Then February we had Nadir, which was very low, around 8,000 cases. And now we are rapidly moving into the next wave, and we do not know what will be our peak this time. But certainly it is very worrisome. So that is the normal behavior also. The second component is, I think very importantly, that when the numbers came down, I think complacency took us all over, be it community as well as to a certain extent the health system. And in fact, we heard what is the need for vaccine also. So this complacency, and I think many of us have forgotten or don't feel frightened at all that there is need for COVID appropriate behavior. Third component, one is not very sure, but from the initial data, whatever we are hearing, the variants of concern or the mutations may not be such a big issue across, but there are about 20 odd districts in the country, which includes a lot of districts from Maharashtra, Punjab, Kerala, and Chhattisgarh, and some of the other states, where during last 6 weeks or so, the increase in the number of cases is 2.5 to 5 or 7 times higher. I mean, actually the numbers have increased by 500 or 700 times also. Now, these are areas which need to.
Can you hear me, Dr. Arora? All right, I seem to have lost that audio, but that was a very important point that Dr. NK Arora was making. So we're going to try and repatch him in just a minute. Meanwhile, Dr. Pandit, you have to tell me what has happened in your review meet on Sunday. Because there are reports that the COVID task force in Maharashtra has recommended that there be more restrictions from the 2nd or 3rd of April. What is the truth of the matter? Are more restrictions coming in Maharashtra and in Mumbai?
So more restrictions in terms of increasing the micro containment zones, more restrictions in terms of people who will be attending office and who would probably be able to work from home. Those are the things which we discussed. The task force never discusses about any lockdown, if that's what you're alluding to. We talk about science and we talk about basically things which would scientifically help things. So increasing the number of tests, we probably have to do double the number of tests of what we are doing. If you look at today's number, and I think you sort of mentioned that at the start of your program, that the numbers are low today, but the test positivity rate for Mumbai today is almost 19%. That means that we have to increase the testing 2 or 3 folds just in Mumbai. I'm not even talking about rest of the Maharashtra to try and get the test positivity rate below 5%. And that's the most important thing. We need to boof up the testing. We need to ramp up the infrastructure in terms of beds, which Mumbai commissioner is doing quite well, and the rest of the government is sort of working at a rapid pace at a war footing in the districts to make sure that the beds and availability of manpower, oxygen, all of these things were actually discussed at length on the review meeting which happened on Sunday.
Um, I will ask you once again, all of this was discussed surely, but was there a need felt to increase the number of restrictions? Right now you have a curfew, a night curfew, which is in place from 8 p.m. onwards. Is there any plan to extend this? Is there any plan or is there any recommendation from the side of the task force to restrict the operation of places like malls, cinema halls, etc., restaurants?
No, that was certainly not discussed. That the more review meeting was more for the health infrastructure and for ramping up the testing and to sort of look at micro containment zones. Certainly, institutional quarantine for people who are probably not doing the home quarantine in the true spirit in which it should be done. All of these things we talked about. Yes, there would be a review of the whole situation on a week-to-week basis, and I expect that the review will happen in a couple of days again and it would probably be discussed again. But certainly, the task force and task force was just one of the part of the whole administration which met, and we actually just talked about these issues in a greater way. We also talked about telehealth, that how we may actually benefit from telehealth and tele ICU. So these were the things which were discussed at length.
Okay, I'll come back to you for more on that, Dr. Pandit. I have Dr. Arora back with me. Dr. Arora, we lost your voice midway, but you were talking about the pointers that have led to the surge. Besides people's complacency, you said the mutations don't seem to be a large threat. Then what in your view has led to this fresh surge? Because behavior has not changed dramatically, let's be honest, between December and Feb and March. If people were not complacent in March and Feb, they weren't that complacent in December either. So what do you think has led to this surge? Oh dear, I've lost that audio again, unfortunately. We'll try and patch perhaps Dr. Arora on the phone because it's important to get his point of view on what is happening in this committee as well. Dr. Pandit, let me come back to you. You said in your first response that, the idea of these discussions between experts and the government, etc., are scientifically how to tackle COVID-19. Do night curfews really help in that case? Many people ask that COVID is going to, spread whether it's day or night. Are we really still grappling for solutions 1 year down the line on how to stem this surge?
So, Tamanna, the whole point is that we actually try and avoid people getting together in a small crowd and creating a crowd so that the transmission actually then happens rapidly. What was observed is that people were actually spending quite a long time during the evening in restaurants, in beaches, in parks and stuff. So I think that night curfew was sort of brought up to bring that under control. Also to remind people that there is COVID very much in the air. You should not be complacent. And third, to enforce the COVID appropriate behavior in a stronger way than what we have been doing. And that has been done quite well right now, at least in Mumbai, where I stay. I can see marshals and the BMC officers constantly monitoring the mask and the COVID appropriate behavior at length. But I agree with you that just putting night curfew is not basically with a hope that the COVID is going to go away. Though this is more of a reminder for people and sort of stopping them from gathering at the social events and things which may actually help into creating a super spreader event as such.
Absolutely. Going forward, especially things like in the context of Mumbai local trains, Dr. Pandit, because we are seeing the spike of cases almost running parallel with the opening up of the Mumbai local trains, and that's when that big spread happened. Do you think there is a case right now for restricting the number of trains that are running in the city?
So I think see, everybody wants the economy to run. That's what I could understand, and that's what we all want as well. What we could possibly do is to stagger the office timings. What we could possibly do is to actually have limited people use the local trains, if at all we need to use the local trains in that way. But as of now, no such decision or discussion on particularly on local trains or on public transport has been done. But yes, that's the next step to look at, because that seems to be one of the places where the surge in the cases started to happen as soon as we opened up the locals. I completely understand where you're coming from, and that would be something which may have to be discussed in the coming week or two.
What about business activity? Right now there is a gloom of uncertainty, and this is not just restricted to one city or one state. All across, there's a gloom of uncertainty as far as businesses are concerned, especially things like, restaurants, malls, etc. They don't know whether people will come or not, whether there will be restrictions on people coming or not. Do you think that there will be some stage of uncertainty, at least for the next 3 to 4 weeks? I had the chance to speak with the BMC commissioner today, Mr. Chahal, and he told me very clearly that we are going to be seeing perhaps a peak and then a plateauing of cases, at least in the city, in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, look, we all feel that when a peak comes in, and we still haven't peaked in Mumbai, we probably would peak in a week or two and then start having plateauing. So I agree with what Mr. Chahal said, that we are looking at 3 to 5 or maybe even 6 weeks window where the cases would start coming down and then plateau out. And that uncertainty of businesses is probably going to remain, but nobody wants to stop or disrupt the economy. I can assure you that there is an every effort made to actually try and get a solution without stopping the economy from functioning. So that uncertainty, I agree, because people also become very, very conscious and they stop stepping out of their house. That's one of the things which we have seen last year as well. Though this year we are not seeing that happening a lot, but obviously people are very worried when they're stepping out of the house.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Arora, I have on the phone line with me. Dr. Arora, I want to do a quick check first. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
All right. Yes, I can. Thank you. We've really wanted to have you back on the show, so I apologize for all of those technical inconveniences. But I think it's very important to get your point of view. We've lost a bit of time, so let me get to the two questions I really want to know from you. One is, where do we stand on more vaccine candidates getting a clearance right now? How far are we from the next lot of vaccine candidates getting clearance? And I also want to know your take on all of these concerns globally about AstraZeneca, and some countries, including Canada now, pausing the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for those 55 and under.
So, first of all, let us talk about the new vaccines in the offing. I think in next few weeks, somewhere in April, we should have Sputnik 5 because they have submitted their papers to the DCGI, and that should be cleared for public use. The second is Cadila-Zydus DNA-based vaccine is the next. They have finished their phase 3, and I think they have finished their recruitment. So somewhere in May, we should be able to get that particular vaccine. And by June end or July, another Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine should also be, because they are preparing for a bridging trial. So these 2-3 candidates are immediately in next 3 months or 4 months. And thereafter, there are 3-4 others which may come in the second half of the year. Now, coming to the AstraZeneca, we are looking at adverse events very closely in our country. And in fact, till 13th, whatever adverse events were documented, and there are 2 types of adverse events which are of concern. One is which is called serious, and serious includes both deaths which have temporarily associated, and the other is hospitalization. And the second is severe, which causes major concern with the recipient. And there were 400 plus such events as of 13th March, and we did not find anything which was of concern, neither in terms of additional thrombosis or bleeding points, more than what was expected. In fact, there were several brain stroke patients, but there were only 3 who had hemorrhagic brain stroke, which can occur as part about 10% or so, or they were part of the whole thing. The other thing is bleeding tendency because of thrombocytopenia, or platelet amount is reduced in the circulation, and this was seen in 5 individuals. And again, this was associated with, there were some corona patients, some had developed cancer, the other were who had developed serious sepsis, where reduction in thrombocytopenia is integral. So overall, the expert group felt that there is nothing of major concern. Some of these concerns have been raised in Europe, and I do understand that recently 2 states in Canada have also not allowed beginning of AstraZeneca in their country. But we feel that AstraZeneca is very much useful and effective vaccine, and we intend to continue with the vaccine. In fact, there is a huge demand for Indian Covishield, but because of our own requirement, I think at least for a month or so, we will not be sending out any vaccine from India, Covishield vaccine.
Why is that, sir?
Because it is our own requirement as we increase. See, now from day after tomorrow, we have 45 years plus. Now that makes our total population to approximately 40 crores. That means 30% of our Indian population is now in the ambit of vaccination. From 45 to rest of the life, we have about 36 crore people. And then another 3 to 4 crore were corona warriors. That makes 40 crores. And 40 crores is about 30%, little less than 30%. And this is a huge requirement. If we need 40 crores, that means we need approximately 900 million doses, or 90 crores, taking vaccine wastage also into account. So that is a huge requirement, and that is why I think some temporary haltage of export is in place at the moment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Arora, Dr. Pandit, for your time. I will have to end this discussion here, but with a hope that we have more vaccine candidates sooner than later. Big news coming in there from Dr. Arora. By the first week of April, we should have more candidates, and the Sputnik will be the next one to be available to Indian citizens for vaccination.